In a world where data is both a strategic advantage and a deeply personal asset, I've become increasingly passionate about data sovereignty. The idea that individuals, communities, and organizations should control how their data is accessed, stored, and analyzed. Too often, the promise of big data and analytics comes with a trade-off of relinquishing control to distant servers, opaque platforms, or walled gardens that extract value but offer little transparency in return. So I've been experimenting with solutions that allow data and AI ML practitioners big data analysis without compromising privacy or ownership. I am yet to experiment with the tool that we're about to learn about, Buckaroo, but I'm very excited to learn, and the vision behind Buckaroo is very exciting. So in this session, Paddy Mullen will walk us through how Buckaroo makes large-scale local data exploration fast, fluid, and joyful without surrendering control. So please help me welcome Paddy Mullen. And Paddy,
Thank
please
you.
take it away.
Hello, I'm Paddy Mullen, and this is my presentation, The Columns to Limit, interactive laptop large data analysis with Buckaroo and Polars. So laptop large data is data that will fit on your laptop around the size of your memory that sometimes crashes your laptop, but we're not talking about Google scale data, but if you can download it like up to 16 or 100 gigs, around that size, which is a lot of data. Um, This is how I look at that. So, demo laptop large data. So, let me 1 second. So, what are we talking about? Let me show you. This is Buckaroo looking at a file. Oh, I need to move this. So, this is a Parquet file with 19 million rows, and we can just scroll through it in a Jupyter notebook. And we have summary stats up here. So, we have these histograms. We have, let's see, we're looking at unique count and null count. And I cheated a bit there. So let me run that again with the cache cleared. And see how that's pending? They're going to compute in the background, but we still have an interactive Jupyter kernel. So we could still press that and get a result. And it will take a bit, and it should run. Yeah. Okay, so we have the first batch of results back. And then it's populating through in the background. This is the experience we're going to talk about today. And I'm going to go back to the main presentation. So let me show you just like basic Buckaroo and like why I built it. So who has used pandas and like looked at data frames? And you get this experience, and this is what your data frame looks like. And you can see the first 5 rows and the last 5 rows. And you can type a command like sort by trip duration. Oh, sorry. This is city bike data. It's 100,000 rows of trips from a New York City city bike station to another New York City city bike station. You can type these commands and you can do this stuff, but that's not the experience we have in any other place we look at data. Like you can scroll through a table. Like we have to scroll. Well, Buckaroo has to do that too, but let me show you this with Buckaroo. If you just import Buckaroo, Buckaroo becomes the default display method for data frames. Um, so here we can see a numeric histogram, what I call a categorical histogram, and let me show you a better one. So for gender, we have 1, 2, or 0. And that tells us a lot. Just this little graphic here tells us that there are only 3 values for this column. And it lets you quickly scan that. User type is subscriber or customer. And then birth year is sometimes NA. Looking at the data is the key step to data analysis, and our basic tools make it difficult to do that. We should have better tools, and I built Buckaroo to be a better tool. We can also switch over to summary stats, and here we see non-null count, null count, unique count for each column. So notice what we're not doing here. Oh, also, wait 1 second, come back to main. Pershing. So let's just search through all the columns for Pershing. We've gone from 100,000 rows to 2,800 rows, and these all have Pershing in them. When you use a Jupyter notebook, your notebooks get really cluttered. We're not cluttering our notebook because these are all views in the same data, and that shouldn't require a bunch of cells. Like, look up here. We have, oh, you can, sorry, we can sort by trip duration by just clicking on the header, uh, sort by start station name. Um, that required a whole another command with basic pandas. It does it in Buckaroo. It really helps keeping your notebooks clean because these are just ways of looking at the same data. We're not transforming the data. We're just looking at the same data. And we should have more powerful tools to power these experiences. Um, Generally, Buckaroo, so Buckaroo is built to be extensible, and all of the styling, summary stats, as the creator of Buckaroo, I don't have any more power than you, the users. So the users can add their own summary stats. They're going to add their own full variety of types of customizations. I'm going to show how you can add a filter. So here we create a function where you look at all the int and float 64 columns and you grab the first quantile and last quantile. And for each column, and then you unify this together. And we can turn this function on and off. So we go from 100,000 rows with it off to 44,000 with it on. You can write, that's pretty simple. And normally in a notebook, if you wanted to write something like that, you'd have to write a bunch of code and you look at it, but you're not actually modifying your data. The only reason you're writing that function for now is just to get a different view of your data. Anessa, can you tell me when there's a question in the chat? Because I see messages, but I don't.
We'll definitely do. These are messages for follow-ups from my intro.
Uh, and then there are other cool things we can do with Buckaroo. Like you can color columns based on other columns. So this float column is colored based on integer column. So when you sort by integer column, you get this nice rainbow effect. String column, we can see that it's 100% is foobar. Like that's really helpful because otherwise you have to look through each value or write some pandas code to figure out like, hey, are these their own values? You can even add in your own charts. And like this is the stuff that just the user is doing. This isn't me, the creator of Buckaroo. You can build these types of applications and experiences on top of Buckaroo as a user. So Buckaroo, because Buckaroo becomes the default data frame display method, it's a really bad thing when Buckaroo can't display a data frame. And data frames in the wild, pandas, Polar's data frames, are really varied. They come in all shapes and sizes. And just off the top of my head, here are things that can throw errors. If you have a nan or an infinity, that can blow up JSON encoding. If you have a column that's numerically named, that can break a lot of things. If you have a multi-index, that can break things. So I built the dastardly data frame data set. So Buckaroo has like here are all the things that have tripped me up, and Buckaroo deals with them. So here we have a multi-index that has names, and you can see index name one, index name two, foo call, barn call. We can display really big numbers. And if you're implementing a table viewing system and you're not doing the right things, you're going to have trouble with this. Let me show you some other apps I've built on top of Buckaroo. So here is a little compare tool I built. So we have two data frames. We have DFA and DFB, and they have columns A and B in common, um, the same column, and then A has column C, D has column D. We run this command, which is defined in here, and we can see same, all of these are unshaded except for 9, which only occurs in 9. So we're joining on A. 9 only occurs in B. 2 only occurs in A. And then we can see this column where these two values are the same, but these are different. So let's just quickly get a visual representation of a very common workflow process in data analysis, which is what has changed. Um, so let's go, and Buckaroo runs in most notebook environments, Jupyter, Marimo, Google Colab, VS Code. That's also important because so you can extend Buckaroo, and the set of filters and summary stats that I built into it are just my best guess at what you would generically want. When you can add your own customizations, and maybe there's one type of data you look at where here are the summary stats that you want all the time, or here's the formatting you want all the time. It's worth investing in Buckaroo because Buckaroo is open source, and Buckaroo runs in these other places. It runs in Colab and Marimo, these other places. Colab, Marimo, VS Code, they have their own data frame display libraries that they've put work into, and they're good. I'm really proud of what I've done with Buckaroo, but they're also, if not proprietary, they're not built to be extensible. They're built to, here is what I've given you, and you can't change it. You can invest in Buckaroo because you're not always going to use Jupyter, but as long as you're using a notebook environment, Buckaroo will probably run there. Um, so that's just Buckaroo, and that was Buckaroo up until October. In November, I started developing Lazy Buckaroo. So um, people here have run Jupyter, use pandas. I guess some people have used polars. Who here has crashed a Jupyter notebook because you opened a file too big? Yep. People probably haven't used Buckaroo, but have you gone out to Excel to see a better tabular view of your data? People probably have. Okay. We've already seen that stuff. We've already seen all this, but I need to import these. So Buckaroo also has a different use case. So I've already talked about how it needs to work with any data frame um, without knowing a lot about the data frame beforehand. Um, it also optimized it for, I know nothing about this data set because there's so many data sets that whatever type of work you're doing, hey, let me take a look at this. Does this make sense for my use case? And what's the quickest way you can figure that out? It's very different than how most of the presentations and tutorials about pandas and polars are structured. Those are structured as, we are looking at the cars data set and we know this, this, and this about it. So we have cars column here and cars column there and dot, 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 dot. Um, and Buckaroo did all of that. Now let me show you the lazy bit and I'll start explaining what it's doing. We're going to look at the same file. Um, so regular Buckaroo samples at around 100,000 rows. So up to 100,000 rows will display it. More than that, it samples. And that's not the experience I wanted. If I didn't sample, processing would take too long and things would break. Um, so internally, we've already seen this data frame. So let me go through how Buckaroo is providing this experience. there's lazy loading of data between the front end and Python. So this table is written in JavaScript, and old Buckaroo did this. Lazy Buckaroo does this. So when we scroll down here and you see all these nuns, JavaScript is requested to Python to send it some data. Lazy Buckaroo hooks that up to a lazy polars frame. So polars has this concept called lazy frames where if you do read CSV, it reads the entire file, puts that into memory. Lazy, if you do scan CSV, you get a polars lazy frame. And that lazy frame is basically, here is a pointer to what will be a data frame, and then you can apply expressions to it, like slice. So slice from 5,000 to 5,100, and that will give you those rows. But it never loads the whole data frame into memory. Um, Buckaroo already had the lazy loading from front end to Python. Lazy Buckaroo adds the lazy loading off of disk. So we never read this whole data frame into memory. The next thing you need, so clear the cache and show this again. You need to be able to run your summary stats reliably in the background. So if I just ran summary stats on the whole data frame, first of all, I've loaded the whole data frame into memory and that's messed things up. What I do instead is you'll see this populating in the background. There are, when it goes to process each one of these columns or these groups of columns, Buckaroo spawns a process, uses the same lazy frame and says, can I go on two columns and get it to work? And sometimes that will blow up in memory or hit a timeout. Because it's in a background process and some of the decorators I've written around it, the main Buckaroo process knows that that has crashed, and then it tries, let me try with two columns, let me try with one column. And eventually you could even try with fewer expressions. Being able to reliably execute analytics in the background is it's a game changer for the types of experiences you can provide. That's why I don't have to sample. And if all of the background summary stats failed, you would just see, you could still see the table without the summary stats. So once we can, but it's still a little bit slow to compute all of those. Like you don't want that every time you load a data frame. I don't care so much for about the experience of it being slow if it's only slow the first time. So the cell above, we cleared the cache, and when you haven't cleared the cache, which I will probably be the only person who clears the cache, it just loads instantly. And then you need an execution log. So it like also let me explain like the experience if you weren't executing that in a background process. Your whole Jupyter kernel would crash and you've lost all state up to that point. And it's one thing if you type your own commands in, you're looking at a data frame to do that, and like you're manipulating a data frame, you don't want that experience. It's another thing if, hey, you've imported Buckaroo, it's displaying everything, and you just try to display a data frame, and then Buckaroo makes your Jupyter kernel crash. I can't do that to my users. Um, when you start crashing a Jupyter notebook, when I've done this manually for like regular data analysis, like you end up having to have a separate file with, I tried this thing, did it work or fail? And then you try it again. Doc, it hurts when I do this. Don't do that. So what Buckaroo does is it records, I was opening this file. I ran these commands and then it will write if it succeeds. And if it doesn't succeed, next time it comes up, it actually says, have I tried to execute this first? And if you haven't failed, Buckaroo does something else. That's really powerful. Like, I don't want to be crashing people's computers. Okay. Okay. Here we're going to see some logging information for what Buckaroo is doing. And like I can tell you right now, well, this is probably the larger file. That did work. Okay, that worked. Anyway, that worked for 12 columns. Sometimes that fails, depends on what I'm doing on my laptop. But you can see here it is failing. If it fails, Buckaroo will try on fewer and fewer columns until it can get to succeed. Um, anyway, we have this widget, and then earlier we showed adding um, the outliers filter. We can add a stat at runtime. So you have to write your code in a little bit of a special way. You're saying, hey, we're going to provide a sum, and we're going to select all numeric columns, sum, and prefix the name with sum, basically. Uh, looking at the questions. Okay, I'll get to these questions in a bit. Um, okay, so see, here are the stats we have right now. And when we add this, we're saying widget.addAnalysis, add this. We add the sum column, and it's going to start computing in the background. Like you can't sum this column, it's a string. Actually takes a while to get there. This is the first, this PU location ID, we can sum that. And we get a sum there. We're doing that at runtime. So you can interactively add stats and play with things and use the pluggable analysis framework and the background execution. We're not crashing our notebook. We're not crashing our notebook kernel. We might crash the other process, but we're not crashing the notebook. No. Yeah, so that's the main gist of what I wanted to present. One of the important things is your laptop is capable of doing all this stuff. So you could have run this like in a sane world, you'd be pulling data from a server where you've already pre-computed these nice summary stats. But that's not the world that I live in when I analyze data. I'm on my laptop, I'm taking a look at something, and I'm going to try a bunch of stuff with it. And it gets really frustrating that like my laptop can do this stuff, but it's just really awkward to do that with Python. And just writing some simple Python wrappers so you have this durability of background execution kind of enables this experience. Um, and then it doesn't need a server. So you don't have to depend on the server. And like for me, in my view, the user experience would be pretty crap if it's like, hey, here's this great data exploration tool. Now upload all your data here. Okay, upload this data. It would be slower and you don't have to do that. So why do that? Like if you're using Buckaroo, you're already using Jupyter. And I'm not going to say do this other thing. I'm also not going to say leave your Jupyter experience. Like you're not leaving your Jupyter experience for a separate app or Excel. Python's capable of doing this. Your computer's capable of doing this. We should have tools which enable that to happen. Um, let me find chat. Um, what's the largest data set Buckaroo can handle? Somewhere down here. The largest I've tried it on is around, uh, let's see, how big is this? Oh, that file is not there. Um, I have run it on a 100 million row file, and that's the largest file that I downloaded. I have moved some stuff around. Uh, so, but basically, if you can get polars to process a file or lazy polars to process a file, Buckaroo should work on it. I'm very confident that Buckaroo will at least display the rows of a file. Um, the summary stats, depending on which summary stats you have enabled, that could be like, are you going to run out of memory? Are you going to hit a timeout? Like that's going to be what limits you there. Let me look at this. Earlier, we had some questions about Okay, seems like I can export and embed those views tables as dynamic HTML elsewhere. I can do that with Dash and Plotly. Okay, you can export part of the Buckaroo experience, but not the entire experience. Um, this, ooh, that's still a bug. Sorry. Okay, just give me a second here. So there are multiple types of Buckaroo, and Buckaroo widget loads all the data statically. There's no lazy loading as you scroll. So here we go. We've saved this. Like this is on the screen, and Buckaroo widget filters at 5,000. Let's save this notebook. Uh, sorry, 1 second. I forget how to. I have done this from the command line. Save and export notebook as HTML. Okay, so that's a large file. It's 5.8 megs, but here we have Buckaroo embedded in there. And there are 5,000 rows. We can sort. Search is not going to work. Summary stats is there. But you can get a lot of the Buckaroo experience exported as just HTML. It's going to be a large notebook. I mean, Buckaroo is 3.7 megabytes of JavaScript plus however large the payload is. But yeah, you can do that. And so far as if you have more questions about what Plotly and Dash do and how you use that, please reach out. Uh, I want to talk more about how I got to the lazy Buckaroo experience. Um, I love hearing from users. If you are looking at data and you wish the experience was different, or you think like Buckaroo could maybe do this for me, please get in contact. github.com/buckaroo-data/buckaroo. You can find me on LinkedIn. Reach out. I built the lazy Buckaroo experience because this summer my cousin called me up and he's like, "Hey, I have a big data set and I need to use Buckaroo." He doesn't, because I can't open it in Excel. He does not use Python. So I'm like, "Oh, this will be easy. This is just pandas." He had a 10 gigabyte CSV file that, like, yeah, like pandas was actually pretty cumbersome with it. Polars worked a little bit, but I had to do all the things you normally do with a large file where you're slicing it and like looking at the first 500 rows and then slicing slightly larger. Oh, can I find this thing? And like this is just we should have a better experience for it, but it's not super easy to build that experience. And like the end conclusion from looking at that data set with him after like 20 minutes was um that data set didn't matter for him. It wasn't the right data set. It didn't have the information he was looking for. And that's fine. Like that's the result a lot of the times when you look at a new data set. Um, but the tooling to get there for me was awkward to use. And like he would have no shot at using it. And like I just wanted a better experience. So please reach out with your problems. And like I can build interesting things on that. And it like really drives me. Inessa asks, why did I name it Buckaroo? So I named it Buckaroo because a buckaroo on a ranch wrangles cattle, and Buckaroo helps you wrangle data. That's why the tool is built this way. Um, Another bit, like some people might think Buckaroo looks a little bit funny. Like it doesn't look like most of the pieces of software you've seen. And I think there are kind of like two types of user interfaces. There's venture capitalist UI and then there's trader UI. In venture capitalist UI, we have nice rounded corners and lots of padding and drop shadows. And it's really nice. And we're not only ever going to show a table with 3 columns, and the third column is going to say call us for pricing. Trader UI, they're going to jam every bit of information into every pixel that you have. Trader UI respects your screen real estate, and that's the experience that I built here. Um,
Still, just a clarification question. I love this explanation. Um, but if I wanted to have something that's not like a dark template, can I do it?
Not
Like a
yet.
styling. Okay.
Not yet. That, 1 second, I can give more light on that. So Buckaroo is implemented as there's a JavaScript library which handles the table, and then there's Python which sends commands and formatting to the JavaScript library. Um, Adding template switching requires JavaScript changes, which I haven't made yet. I don't think they're impossible. How are you at styling? Would you like to contribute on that?
I wouldn't want to say that I have the chops in JavaScript to do that at all. So just yeah.
It's
If
a
I knew,
request
I'd be
I've
interested
heard.
in contributing, but no.
It's a request I've heard. I will work on it at some point. But yeah, like there are some things that are baked in. Like if you wanted, for instance, if you wanted this green bar there to be pink, you'd kind of have to write that. You'd have to write JavaScript. There is an overwhelming majority of the visual configuration that you can drive from Python. Uh, any other questions?
Hello.
Oh, Andrew.
Hi. Yeah, so um just I do love the dark template. Actually, I've used some other open source solutions which I think are kind of a little overlap, not completely overlap, that are only the light template, and I use dark mode.
Okay.
Not not awesome. Um as have you looked at I would appreciate, maybe, I don't know how in depth it is. I don't want to kind of question. I'm really curious
Can you type out your question? I'm having a really hard
in
time
order to
hearing you.
contribution package office, and I have, is it hard time hearing me? Yeah, I can type it out.
Yeah.
I don't know how the question, but
Um, Inessa, you had some questions about how Buckaroo can work with open governance.
Yes, and yes, let me elaborate to the wider audience. This is something that I've been digging a lot just in the last weeks of 2025 and hoping to explore more in the new year. We all know that open source is being rapidly adopted by the US government. There are many bills and acts and just the announcements coming from the federal government, but also from Department of Defense and also large corporations. And in my research, I'm also seeing this pattern in Europe, and maybe they even a little ahead of us, and also in Asia. At the same time, there are some concerns about data privacy. So I'm curious how Buckaroo helps companies and governments preserve ownership of their data.
Buckaroo is not a service. It's a Python package you install. So whatever data you pointed at, like Buckaroo is not taking any ownership of it. So you're not uploading to a Buckaroo server. Lazy Buckaroo caches some data, but like it's staying on your laptop. Or whatever. If you're running Buckaroo from a cloud environment, it will copy it there. But Buckaroo has no designs to do machine learning on your data generally. Um, it's like asking, like, well, what does Excel do to my data ownership and privacy? And it's like, I don't know. What does Excel that runs on your Windows machine do to it? Like it's a good question, and but I just have to think about how to answer it because I'm just like, it runs on your computer. And like I realized how kind of novel it is that it's not a SaaS. Um, but I think the user experience for Buckaroo would be notably worse if it worked as a SaaS. So it's not.
Thank you for answering my question and a kind of a good conversation to bring to the table is that the concerns of privacy are
Um,
should be redirected about the cloud infrastructure, about clusters that you're using. But there are plenty of solutions that you can run on a local machine for your data science team at a larger organization or at a government office that will not compromise your data ownership.
um,
And we have a comment from Willie, who has plenty of experience working with government. Government closed network do okay with Python libraries, but fail with some C dependencies and GS like Express and others. Yeah. Well, thank you.
yeah, I mean, I would think if you can download Buckaroo, it will work. So like in this example, like if you can pip install Buckaroo, it will work. So in this, like this could work in an air gapped file. So this file, um, this HTML that we exported, Buckaroo-quick, this is displaying a Buckaroo experience. Like Buckaroo does not make a network request even to download the JavaScript. Um, when you're running in the Jupyter notebook, it's making a request to your Jupyter server. But yeah, if you're not running Jupyter, if you can't run Jupyter for some reason locally, you also can't run Buckaroo. But here is Buckaroo completely self-contained. So I guarantee you, if I disconnected my network right now, this experience would still load. Um, so Andrew was asking, talk about the architecture of Buckaroo. Um, okay, trying to think where to start. Let me do some looking through my docs. 1 second. The docs. Okay. Articles. So there is, okay, there is the JavaScript side, which I'm just going to ignore for now. And then there's the Python side. The Python side is meant to be really extensible. And there are multiple points where you can extend Buckaroo. So when Buckaroo reads a data frame, and none of this applies to lazy Buckaroo for reasons, there are a couple of things we're going to need. First, you take a raw data frame, and are you sampling it? If it, depending on sizing, you might sample it. And you get a sample data frame, and then based on the cleaning method and low code UI, which whatever the low code state, which I haven't demonstrated, but there is a low code UI and data cleaning system built into Buckaroo. Anyway, there is a transform. And from there, you get the process data frame. That is probably, no. Uh, ignore this for now. Then we have the post-processing method. And based on which post-processing method was selected, you take that clean data frame, and then you get your process data frame. Your process data frame is basically what's sent up to the web browser, to JavaScript. We also have these SDs, which are summary dicts. There's one from cleaning, which we're going to ignore for now. That function for the post-processing method, you can also say, here is some metadata. Your summary SD, like that's where all of your summary stats live there, and also hints for how to style this. Um, there's also a style method, and yeah. all of these are merged together and they're sent to the widget. I haven't looked at this in a while. This is not the best explanation. But when we added that sum method, and we saw that populate through, that was changing analysis classes. When we added the outliers filter, we were working here. I haven't showed the auto cleaning, but that would work here. And sampling, like the nice thing about lazy Buckaroo is you don't have to sample as much. But we have a graph and a distinct way that the data flows through Buckaroo. It's really important. And like one of the things you don't have here is you don't have callbacks. Like you're not saying, oh, did someone click on the post-processing method? Let me change that and let me update my data model. And the reason I don't have that is because if you did, you're going to get a cycle. And you can't do everything with this, but you can do enough to be really useful. So let's see how to think about it. Think about like there's other documentation about all this. Like here are a series of videos, and you would want to look at extending Buckaroo, where I go through here are ways of doing that. But basically, it's being familiar with here are the levers, and then thinking about I want Buckaroo to do this thing. How do I get it to do that thing? On the JavaScript side, I'll explain that. So Buckaroo is built on top of AG Grid. I have this somewhere. Where is it? So Buckaroo is built on top of AG Grid Community Edition. That's the front end table that does the core scrolling. Pandas, polars, Jupyter widget, any widget. Recharts is what's doing the actual charts. I use SQLite for some of the caching, high Parquet for JavaScript, for deserialization of Parquet in the browser, and Cloud Pickle. That's the only dependencies that Buckaroo actually has. So on the front end, you're probably going to want to look at what AG Grid or Recharts does. And AG Grid is really powerful, but basically it's set up so that, oh, if I want to trigger this functionality, let me write a little JavaScript function in a callback. And Buckaroo has its own kind of DSL for how do I manipulate these things, because like you don't want to write JavaScript functions from Python. You don't want to write JavaScript functions and send them there. Let me see, what do I have about that? Ooh, ooh. Ah, so this is an app I built in Marimo. It's a, I'm trying to think how to explain this. This is showing some of that DSL with more documentation around it. If you have specific questions, please reach out. And even if you don't, if you just want to do something, you have no idea how to do it, please just ask. And like, I'd love to have that conversation with you and help you use Buckaroo. Sorry if that was too much in the weeds. Wasn't really prepared for that question, but it's a good question. Do we have any other questions?
I have another question, Paddy.
Okay.
Where in my community had, since this is an open source project, and in your earlier comment to Chris, you referred that you're open to contributions. What is the best way for someone to get involved as a contributor?
Use Buckaroo and file a GitHub issue. Recently, I heard that someone was having trouble with running Buckaroo on Windows and with polars. I put out a fix, but I don't have CI for Windows. Someone here has a Windows laptop. Please give it a try. I'd love to hear. Like filing a bug is really, really helpful. And I think it's like the first way, even if you know how to fix it yourself, please file a bug because then we can talk about how you fixed it, and the next person who tries to search can see how you fixed it. It gives me a lot of information when I see a bug because it lets me know how people are using the tool or couldn't figure out how to use the tool. Like that would be where I would start.
Love it. Issues are welcome, everyone.
Yeah. Uh, if that's it for questions,
I might have another one.
sure.
Just curious. Yeah, thanks for the presentation. So we're like me and a couple of volunteers are building a little tool that helps non-technical users analyze data sets, and those would be social media data sets.
Hmm.
And one thing that we try to make it easy for these users is to explore the data. You know, they might be interested in like bots or something on social media. What that means is currently we're effectively building a Python-based tool that part of it is just a dashboard. In this case, it's going to be Shiny for Python. And all these dashboard tools have rather nice, these table viewers that you can display a data frame and a user can scroll through it. And then these social media data sets can also be bigger, can go into hundreds of thousands of rows. And we would like to be able to users to, scroll through the data and then search kind of like with Buckaroo. So I guess the question is, without any specific comparison, should I be thinking as a developer, maybe looking into using Buckaroo under the hood? Or is that not really the prime use case? You're thinking more somebody who's a data scientist and knows like versus somebody who might not, um, think about a data frame efficiency all the time. I don't know. Does that make sense as a question?
I hear you. Like, I would love for Buckaroo to be used that way. I don't know how well it will function inside of Shiny. I have not tried that.
Okay.
Um, with Shiny, do you basically have a Jupyter kernel running at all times, backing each user session?
I assume so, yeah.
If you do, then there's a good shot it can work. And like, if you're already serving up like a large file, like how many rows are you talking about?
I don't know, something like 200,000 rows up to a million. That's the use cases I've seen currently.
Okay. You might be able to even make that work without having the server there. But yeah, I'm open to supporting Shiny. Talk to me afterwards. It's a matter of like which features do I build out. Um, and oh, this is also brings up a good point. There are kind of two parts of Buckaroo. There's Buckaroo, the experience, the Buckaroo widget for here's the experience for looking at data you've never seen before, and
Hmm.
that's what I built there. There's also like Buckaroo Core, which is the JavaScript libraries and the Python um, code I wrote. And like Buckaroo Core is a framework that I built the like Buckaroo Data Explorer application on top of. I would love if people could use Buckaroo Core to do other things, like use it in courts. So when you ask like, is this aimed towards data science? Buckaroo Data Explorer, that experience in the Jupyter Notebook is built for that experience, but using Buckaroo in other environments, that should use Buckaroo Core, and that will give like a
Hmm.
lot of good information about what features to add to Buckaroo. Um,
Okay,
yeah,
cool. Thanks. Yeah.
and please get in touch. Thank you for everyone for your time.
Yes, we are coming up to the end of this session. Paddy, thank you for your presentation. I'm excited for the future of this project. And to our attendees, thank you for spending time with us today. If you decide to adopt Buckaroo, please let us know on the mailing list if you're part of the OSA community or on our LinkedIn feed. And I'll be posting the presentation on the OpenTeams YouTube channel in the coming days. So if you missed anything, keep an eye out on your inbox. Also, if you enjoyed the presentation, feel free to forward the recording to somebody that you think will find Buckaroo useful. Really appreciate you all being here.